we had a real talk, nice conversation, life lessons for us law students to learn. Some of us attorneys have learned this. Couple of lessons. We got to be twice as good. I know we don't like to say that, but when you get in corporate America, you're going to realize that you almost got to be 10 times as good. It ain't no my bad. You know, sometimes you get one chance, and that's it. You'll see others get many chances. But I think the reality in what I'm saying, Skinner taps me like, I'm not a politician. The reality, you can see it in the number of sisters, which I want to say within the first 6 months of this administration that lost their jobs. It's not always, let's not fool ourselves that this is about merit at all. So anyway, we got actually our Outstanding Achievement in IP Social Justice Award. We're going to announce this and get out the way, and you guys are going to hear from a very dynamic panel. This award is presented to an HBCU law student who has combined exemplary immersion and proficiency in the study of intellectual property law with demonstrated service toward furthering the Houstonian legacy in the field of intellectual property law. I'm not going to read the rest of this. Let me get a drum roll. Our award recipient is Sabrina Pierre. Come on up. For the picture. Let's get this picture. Okay. Everybody's sweating. I thought it was just me, but they done raised the heat on us.
It's your illuminating personality.
All right. Thank you. All right. Come on, Jordan. You got this.
How y'all doing? Y'all ready to get started? All right. We are about to talk about the innovative legal areas of sports and entertainment law. We're going to introduce ourselves and then, so my name is Jordan Lewis. I'm currently at Greenberg Traurig in the Austin office. I'm a patent prosecution attorney. I also wear a different hat. I'm seconded to Meta's patent licensing team, so we'll see how long I stay at Greenberg Traurig. And I'll let the panel introduce themselves and then we'll get busy in some questions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shakee Smith. I am currently the contracts manager for the Washington Spirit, the premier women's soccer team in D.C. I am also an NFLPA certified contract advisor, and I am very happy to be here.
Thank you. How everyone's doing? My name is Edward Foltz. I'm a senior associate at Reed Smith LLP in the D.C. office. I monetize talent, ideas, brands, and businesses related to IP, advertising, privacy, and anything in between that. So happy to be here with you guys.
Hey everybody, Derek Maltby Jr., a managing associate at FBT Gibbons between our Pittsburgh, New York, and Nashville offices. I focus mostly on venture capital and technology transactions and have spent a decent amount of my career working around sports innovation.
Hello everyone, my name is Che Thomas Esquire. I am a 2018 graduate from Howard University School of Law, and I own Simplify. It's a contract review company for creators. Those are YouTubers, streamers, just anyone that's a creator or a small business.
Perfect. I would like to start off by, in your own words, what do you see next on the horizon in your specific industry using either AI or just pure innovation?
See next. Well, we're in the midst of it, right? I think AI it's a constantly changing thing. And so legally, we are trying to keep up, right? New software, new innovations, and the way that it's being used, especially from, player training, player scouting, fan interactions. It's spanning the globe of all things in sports. And so I think that right now it's not necessarily new. We don't know what's coming next, but I think it's changing so much that we just have to kind of try to keep up.
I guess in my world, I'm not going to talk about AI, because AI is always a loaded topic, right? Everything has to do with AI. So you don't know AI, learn AI. Whether it's Harvey AI, Google, Whispering, you should learn the skill set, right? Most of them are free to learn on YouTube, at least for the basic program, and then you want to get advanced, go from there. I guess in my world, same thing. We get from our clients, some of them, I don't want to use the word innovative, but some of them try to come with us and say, oh, we have a contract already for our talent. But we see the contract is an AI generated contract. So as most people know, sometimes those contracts, not all the time, they don't have all the words, provisions that you need to have in those contracts, right? Indemnifications, insurance, severability. Usually they're 1-page, 2-page contracts, and we have, had to add our legal, specifications to it, right? So I think moving forward, young creatives, upcoming artists, upcoming talent athletes, they understand that you got to build a team around you. At Reed Smith, we try our best to say, well, who's your team, right? What's the mission? What's the team? And don't have to feel like if you're a creative, you got to do this by yourself, right? You should have an attorney, a wealth manager, some type of tax architect or tax person, and also, other people that handle the admin work. So for us, with AI innovation, it's more like coming together and understand exactly what you need it for and what you're using it for your audience.
Yeah, when I think about what's next, specifically around artificial intelligence, I think data is going to continue to be a huge piece. Artificial intelligence only works with mass amounts of data, and a lot of the ways that we're looking to innovate, leveraging artificial intelligence and AI-enabled tech solutions require massive data sets. So one of the issues we're dealing with most right now when looking at tech transactions and technology agreements is these artificial intelligence companies knowing they need to train their data, they need to continue to build out those platforms and those technologies to be better, and they're looking to do that with our clients, our customers' information. So there's a battle of protecting our confidential information, wanting to build out our own unique internal artificial intelligence systems to leverage our own data, but then also data brokers and folks that are going to make major waves and be able to build massive data sets that they can then sell to these different companies.
So I'll piggyback on all of the previous panelists and say that for me, it's not about like the contract structure, but the content of the contracts. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with Kabi Lame. He's a Sudanese creator on TikTok, and he just sold his whole likeness, image, and everything to a company for like some millions. That's the future of AI that I'm looking forward to learning more about, I guess. It's just, for me, it's like, where are the creators going to go as far as the AI, and how are they going to still maintain their own IP and their ownership of that? So for me, it's more about the content of the contracts. I don't feel like any AI can negotiate a contract better than I can. But that's kind of where I see the future. And I guess we're already, like you said, in the future right now, as far as like, creators giving their images, their likeness, and just giving all of that over for a couple $1 million. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with Black Mirror. It's a TV show on Netflix, and they actually have an episode where this person's like watching the Netflix show, and it's actually about her. So maybe the contracts and the contents of like, what are you signing away, where you're signing over these terms and conditions. And so, yeah, that's where I think we are.
So great. So in my eyes, right, with sports and entertainment law, you have two very different sides, right? You have the viewers, the people that are receiving this, the fans, or like the people that are the fans of these sports or the fans of this entertainment, and then you have the creators, right? So from a fan perspective, what do you see when it comes to like biometrics in these stadiums, right? Like that's the next real big wave, right? All these stadiums are trying to have like the ultimate fan experience, which is all going to be based off of tech, right? What do you think the implications or shortfalls that are going to arise with that, right? Like that's a lot of privacy concern. That's a lot of data sets that you just said, right? A lot of people's data that is now going to be shipped around, right? Like the Intuit Dome knows when you're standing, when you're sitting, how loud you are, right? What are the implications with this data being shared as a part of a fan experience?
So I think, let me take a step back from your actual question. I think we have to look at it from both sides, right? We have where they are doing biometrics and all those things, and a lot of that is because they are trying to create the ultimate fan experience, right? The NFL is currently using a lot of the data that they've gathered to create fan experiences that are very personalized to fans on their websites, or how they view. If you've noticed, they'll show you, what the percentage of like success for, on a 4th and 1, should they go for it, should they not, all of that is AI generated, right? And so from the positive side, they're using the data to be able to create very personalized fan experiences to help the fans enjoy the game more, right? From the negative side, though, it's only as good as the data that's going in, right? And so also recognize with AI, you are competing with bias, because bias is a real thing, and whoever's inserting the data, if they have bias, the data has bias, right? And so I think that there is definitely a concern as to how the data is being used. If somebody ends up stealing the data and how they intend on using it. And so I think that's part of the reason why, as I previously said, like, we're in the middle of it and trying to make sure we're governing in a great way so that people's privacy concerns aren't so prevalent.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, piggyback off. I think the ability to make our lives more convenient and easy is the trade-off, right? We are, to an extent, all comfortable giving away a certain level of our data for our experiences to be easier. Anybody in here who has ever shopped online knows what that's like, right? You go onto the website and everything based on your behavior and your patterns of the way you've interacted with that website in the past and how you've interacted with other websites is going to curate your experience differently than it'll curate mine. I think being able to take those same concepts and put them into the fan experience and the user experience within a stadium or within the way you interact with that team, virtually, is a benefit. I think that's the reason they're doing it. It's also going to create efficiencies within the stadium and allow for more money to be made. Ultimately, that's another huge push. But again, the more data that they collect, the more of a target they are from a data security standpoint. The more sensitive information they seek to collect and to own, to be able to create those experiences, the more risk and liability those entities are taking. And so, what we know as lawyers is that I can put almost anything in a privacy policy. I can put almost anything in terms of use, and the average consumer will accept it and allow me to use it, right? We are contracting around these things. There are regulations, the California Consumer Privacy Act, there are, number of them, right? It's a state patchwork, and we have to account for those things in our policies, right? We have to contract around those things, but it's not stopping anybody from doing it. The real rub comes when their liabilities start to come along with it, and that's when you see those data security incidents, also known as breaches, where there are large amounts of data that are being compromised, and the regulators want to come in and make an example. And so that's something that we will ultimately see at some point over the next coming years, that we've seen in the retail and e-commerce space already. I think we'll start to see some of that in the sports space.
In my world, how I seen it is with the biometric data, it's kind of like when people do prize promotions and sweepstakes and giveaways and offers and raffles, but they want to do it to the super fans, right? So you got to find out from that data who is the super fan. Super fans are a loaded term, but basically the people who are mostly engaged with the fan experience, right? And from there, there's, okay, let's give this super fan a free trip to the World Series. Is that sweepstakes, right? And of course, the definition of a sweepstakes to be legal lottery is like prize, chance, consideration. You have those three elements. It's considered a legal lottery. You're gambling, right? So that's something I deal with a lot in my world, right? It's like we getting this data so we can do more fan experiences to give people more chances to win big prizes. But are you operating as a legal lottery? Because all you guys just enter your name. Is there consideration depending on the scheme, and their prize? You get the prize as this variable item or this trip. So we always try, and they always try to go, all right, well, let's do it like this. Let's do it. Well, still, you got to take away one of these elements to not make it an illegal lottery to do this giveaway, to do this sweepstakes, right? So that's why we get a lot of our questions from this data, because they want to, as we all said, engage and keep engaging to make fans happier, more convenient, and have more fun at these different sporting events.
Now, on the opposite side of that token, right, that's the fan experience. Now you have what we are seeing, right, as a high tick in athletes and entertainers with wearables, right? How does that create concerns, especially from your world, right? Where now you're getting this data on this athlete that they may not want you to have, right? Like, we know that you're slower than you were last year. And how does that affect the contract going forward?
Well, I mean, again, it goes to what Edward just said, like, or Derek just said about, we've created these contracts you've already signed. Once you agree to wear the wearable, you know what data it's tracking, right? I think that at the end of the day, performance will not necessarily trump all, but your wearable data may say one thing, and it may be an explanation for the performance, but I don't know that it'll necessarily cancel out the performance, right? I think the wearables, because it's such a huge thing now in sports, again, I always want to talk about the positives and the negatives, right? Because positives, I work for a women's sports team, and some of the wearables that we employ will help guide how we treat women athletes, right? Because for a long time, women athletes were treated like little men, right? And that's how they were trained, and that's how, if injury occurred, that's how they were rehabbed. Well, now we have wearables that are very specific to women, and so the training plans look a little different now, right? And so that's innovation, and that's one of the things that we can be proud of. But at the same time, do I want my coach to know that I only slept 3 hours last night? That may come with questions, right? So, I mean, that's just the reality of life. They have lives outside of, coming to practice and playing in games, right? And so, I think that there is a line drawn as to, do we only look at the data that occurred during the day at practice, or you know what I mean? Like, because it's gonna capture everything. But I think there's some guidelines that have to be put in place if, as a team, we're requiring a player to wear certain things, how much because it goes into your privacy, right? Do we want to peer into what's going on? But at the same time, it may explain why, you were sluggish at practice, or why, you've been limping, or, you're hiding an injury because you really want to play. So I think there are key factors you have to put it together, but I think it's a totality of it all, not just necessarily like, you're wearing this, and so we get to know everything about you.
I mean, go ahead.
I just want to say a little part. For me, being the person that's representing the entertainer, or the client, the talent, whatever the case is, I would just probably put in a gag clause or add an NDA to it, so that back to your original question, if there is something that's a little off, that it cannot be given away, or just people won't know about it, because that is part of, as you were saying, the privacy and your personal information. So that's just what I was thinking. Like, if my client is wearing this wearable, like, to make sure that the parameters are set, like you were saying, the guidelines around these certain times. But also, if it doesn't add up and it may affect the contract moving forward, or the re-sign, or wherever it may be, to put in some type of NDA that the people who are receiving this information are not going to the press and letting them know that this actually wasn't the time or seconds or whatever the performance may be. That's all I was going to say.
I think it comes down to it's competing interests, right? I'm sure there's people in here that have been athletes before, and I think at any level as an athlete, your job is to give results, right? Don't want excuses, want results. At the highest level, you are a commodity. You are an investment by that team, by the ownership group, by the league. And so, the competing interest of how much data is too much and where is the ethics line. I think ethics is a huge piece of this conversation, because I'm paying you millions of dollars. You know what, maybe I do want to know everything, but how do I utilize that information? And I think, think about like wearables, especially in women's sports, the data that is being collected, you can almost to a certainty tell when somebody is in early stages of pregnancy, right? And so your re-sign's coming up. I know from this data that you might be pregnant. Maybe I don't resign you. You know what I mean? Maybe I use that information. But the ethical aspect of that, and the discriminatory aspect of that, obviously, is something that shouldn't be allowed to happen. So I think as we're continuing to push forward with wearables and other technology within athlete performance, there does need to be certain guidelines and regulations adopted to protect the athlete. because teams will do what they have to do to get results.
Right. Like especially, if you're representing somebody, right, and you know that extension is coming up, the last thing I want is you to have extra information, right? So
I was just gonna say one more thing. For the women or the women presenting in the room, if you have a period tracker, this is exactly what we're talking about, just in real life, because the period tracker app or the people who created it are definitely selling your information to the government as far as like having abortion laws and bans in certain states, and so that's something that is currently happening in real time to have some type of like parallel to the wearable devices.
now to my favorite topic, which I'm so excited for you guys to touch on. This innovation in sports and entertainment law leads right into sports betting, right? So I would love for y'all to kind of, because y'all each wear different hats, right? So if you kind of like tell me how you feel like this sports betting world is just rampant, right? Like now you getting probes on like college athletes that are intentionally missing games to make sure that these numbers are looking a certain way, so their friends and whoever else is betting on them to not hit numbers are getting it, right? This innovation in sports is going to be able to track all this, right? These analytics, these predictive analytics, right? So I would love for you guys to kind of go through and see how sports betting affects everything.
It's two-sided, right? Because on one hand, the innovation within sports gambling has created major problems. It's too accessible. We can put in bet. I mean, there's a reason Vegas is dying. It's because I don't need to go to Vegas anymore, right? I don't need to go to the casino. I have the sports book in my hand, and I can create 8 accounts, and they can all be fake. And there's just so many levels in which there needs to be more regulation around specifically, the virtual aspect of sports gambling at this moment in time. That being said, the other side of the coin is the analytics and the innovation of sports gambling is making it easier to catch folks that are playing this game. One of the kind of incidents that has occurred recently, they were able to utilize the artificial intelligence systems they had in the data analytics to be able to tell when people were pushing things too far and put an extra eye into those situations. That's how a lot of these athletes right now are being caught, and the probes are being set for different organizations, different colleges, based on the data and based on the innovation that's built within these systems anyway. So it's a two-sided coin. There needs to be certainly, I think, less accessibility to these sports betting platforms. But I think that there will be some additional innovation and things that will occur to maybe clean up some of the incidents that we're having and make sure that we're able to have fair and honest sporting events.
I guess in my line of work, we deal a lot with the disclaimers in terms of conditions of gambling provisions. So if, MGM want to do another promotion, sign up, get free X number of dollars. We do a lot of the terms and conditions of that gambling platform, right? So no purchase necessary, limited for a time offer. Other restrictions may apply, which was my favorite because that's just a catch-all phase. And it says on there as well, once again, some of these are monthly promotions, right? Some of them, you have to be on the member for at least 3 or 4 months. Some of them are statewide. A lot of states have restrictions, depending, Georgia, Texas, Florida. So in my line of work, I would say that we encourage it because one is more billable work, private law. So billable work means more terms and conditions, more things going on. We like when things happen. We know the big thing with the athletes is, the question is, are they in on it or they're not, right? Do they know what's going on? Are they playing dumb? Are they kind of like, oh, I didn't know my cousin's friend was doing that based on my performance, right? And that's where the AI, those data endpoints, those algorithms comes like, oh, well, you were at his house on Christmas, and then the next day after Christmas, you did this, right? So one thing, going back to privacy, so it's all connected, right? Gambling, privacy, access to information. We know the big one, Chauncey Billups prosecution case, that's kind of the big one, the news going on. That trial is set for, I think, September, at least the hearing. And though that's going to be a lot of ramifications, right? Like how much did Billups and his people knew compared to the mafia, gambling. So once again, it all ties into different aspects of social enterprises, right? So I think in just our world, we should make sure the disclaimers of the output of information we see on commercials, when we see on the bottom of coupons and whatever, is that accurate enough for consumers to know exactly what does it mean when I enter into this gambling, betting, or the dollar amount?
So can I just piggyback really quick?
Yeah.
As you were talking, I was thinking about something Derek said because it is a two-sided thing, right? You have team sponsors, you have league sponsors. I mean, literally, if you watch the NBA, you're seeing the FanDuel commercials, and then right after you see the FanDuel commercial, it is, if you think you have a gambling problem, please call, such and such, right? On top of that, you also have league rules in their CBAs, collective bargaining agreements, in their CBAs that are very specific that tell players they can't gamble, right? And so you have a lot of competing interests, and at the end of the day, I think we all know that somebody's going to try to find the loophole, right?
To get paid.
And so it's a cousin that was at the house like, hey, you have a game against, what do you think? Even if it's asking their opinion, I mean, that technically is against the rules of the CBA, right? And so I think it's a fine line, but as an advisor for an athlete, you have to be very conscious of, making sure that your athlete understands what they can and can't do. Because that is how you ruin your career.
And just to frame it for everybody in the room why this is so important, the way that the NBA, the NFL, any of these 3 or 4 letter leagues works is that we, the fans, buy that the outcome is legitimate, right? We are invested in each play, each down. We want to see what happens. And the more of these cases that come forth and these probes that come forth that show that that is not the case, that some of these things are predetermined, it will ruin both the gambling sites and it will ruin the viewership for these leagues, right? So there's real stakes, and the reason that the league is so invested in the gambling sites is it's just more revenue, right? Having their hands in that, it was going to happen anyway. Yeah. Why don't we help control it and gain from it?
Yep.
We're a couple ways away from it being pro wrestling.
I'll just say a couple things. So from my perspective, there's really no issue for me. I mean, I'm sure everyone has seen Drewski's commercial with Prize Picks, and so I guess with that is just kind of making that contract solid between the talent and the company as far as Prize Picks. What are some of the other ones?
FanDuel, DraftKings.
Yeah, it's just
BetMGM.
it's more like a talent agreement for me. So I don't see anything bad right now. But also before I started Simplify, I was interviewing for in-house counsel positions, and I did interview with Prize Picks. And so from that perspective, I know that something that is to be looked at is more of like the government perspective and the government contracts and where they can be geographically on the map. And to see how that will work as far as like these gambling companies and them spreading out more as far as globally.
Yeah. I think what's crazy is the geolocation strength of it, right? Yeah. Like they can pinpoint not only when you made that bet, but you were in the facility when you made that bet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The last thing I wanted to say, I'm not sure if you all know who Kai Cenat is, but he does have like a streaming thing on Twitch, and he is not pretty close, but he's like friends with LeBron James, I guess, and Tyler's a big fan of LeBron James as well, and so that would probably be something that would be looked at as far as like if Kai Cenat was to place a bet the day after LeBron James left his house and they just so happened to win, or what I'm saying, things of that nature. That would probably be the only thing I would find a concern with.
Yeah, it's funny how like we've kind of already touched on like wearables, right, with injury concerns and how like basically what you just said, right? Like those injuries that they can predict, that we know you're not hurt, yet you asked to be subbed out in Q1, and so happened that there was a massive bet for you to not hit any of your numbers, and they were able to Terry Rozier.
Because who's putting millions on Jonte Porter?
Exactly.
Nobody.
No one. So also to that point, right, the next I think other aspect would be officiating, right? Now this is kind of like a collection of everything we talked about, right? The officiating can touch on not only the analytics as well as the AI, because you could remove officials completely from the game, like with the 4th and 1 spotting automatically and stuff like that. But then at the same time, you have a little probe going around where these refs are fixing games. So I would love for you guys to kind of like touch on that as well.
So as far as officiating, I think, we have seen the benefits of AI, right? We have instant replay. We have in mostly every sport, right? And so I think that it has in many ways made officiating more efficient, more accurate. It also, though, and this is the negative side of it, has slowed down the game in some instances, right? And so as you use the AI to gauge your fan experiences and how they are enjoying the games, that's a consideration, right? We want accurate calls, but we also want quick calls. So where's the balance, right? I forgot your question just that quick.
Do you think officials will get replaced?
I don't think so. My whole premise about AI is that it is not to be used as a replacement. It is to be used as a supplement, right? And so I don't think you can, quite honestly, not have officials in a game. I think that is part of the game, and including when fans hate the call, right? That takes away from the game experience when you can't boo the ref. You know what I mean? And I'm one of those people that boos the refs. So, I enjoy booing refs if I think the call was horrible, right? And so I think that, I don't know that as a fan, or fans in general want perfect calls. I think we don't have anything to talk about when the game's over if we can't question a call, right? So I don't think that AI will ever replace a human being in that instance.
Well, as a Saints fan, I wish it did.
I mean, I agree, right? I don't think AI is not a replacement tool, right? It's an asset, as a tool to help you achieve whatever goal, outcome you're trying to do, whether it's help you make an email more professional, whether it's help you interact with a networking piece, whether it's help you a call to make sure the call is right, I do think that with officiating, there definitely is a lot more. They have more eyes on them, I guess, in the league office because they know, right? I don't think because how many people can name the top 5 officials in any league, right? Not many, right? But we can name the top 5 players, even though you never watch a game of basketball. You can name those, right? So I do think there's that same balance, right? People don't know who they are, but they know as well that the league office or the whatever league they're a part of have more eyes on them because they're watching them more and more, especially when the whole thing came out with the Kings-Lakers game and that referee, Donahue, what's his name? You know what I'm talking about? No.
Luka?
No, the Kings and Lakers game back in the day in 2000. Playoff, yeah. So I think that really caused a big thing because, this has actually happened. The whole playoff season got lost, and to this day, you talk to a Kings player from that time, they're still mad. So I do think that incident really makes sure that whatever application process and interview process, screening, referees get into, they understand we're gonna watch y'all for every game, every call, and it's incentives, right? The referees that do well go to the playoffs and get paid more. They do well there, they go to the finals, Super Bowl. So it's incentive the officials to get calls right because then you can get promoted to get more money, right? So I like that, right? You do a good job, we'll keep rewarding you. You do a bad job, you're not gonna keep being here for X number of years, right? So I do think the referees for the most part have been here 10 years or longer, do love AI because they want to make sure they get it right. I want you to know officials like getting booed. They don't understand it, as part of the process. Right. But when they get called right, and you see nowadays they kind of have fun with the calls, right? They kind of do a little intro and then they stop and go back. So I do enjoy they're having fun with the officiating. So that's just my sense.
Not much to add on it except for going back to the sports gambling. If anybody here is on social media and follows any degenerate gamblers, just to see what looks good this weekend, you will notice that the data analytics around officials has gotten better and better and better and better each year. Yeah. And best believe the teams also leverage those analytics where to an almost certainty degree how many offsides calls certain line judges are going to call this weekend, or this against this team with this receiver, this officiant will call this many pass interferences, almost to a certainty. And so I think that the league can also leverage the increase in the data analytics around some of these things to see some of these trends, right? Is this somebody throwing it? Do they have a bias against a certain player? And then how do we make sure we match up things to make it as even as possible?
Is Simplify ready to just take on the world with AI?
So I'll answer your question. I think that AI will end up replacing the refs. And I know everyone keeps saying, like, AI is to help the world get better and da-da-da-da. Well, AI is now delivering pizzas, even though we still have people that are delivering. I'm sure that capacity has decreased. Once they figure out how to drive, the Ubers and the taxis, they will probably be depleted as well. And in my head, just listening to everyone, I'm just thinking about them having a camera over the rink, and y'all know Snoop Dogg is like now doing all of this sports commentary and stuff. He's not going to be here forever, unfortunately. However, I do foresee him licensing or selling his voice, his image, whatever the case is, and then probably putting that into some AI formation. And whenever the call is called, just have him repeat whatever oh, dang, he got the ball. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to physically be there. And this is the future that I'm thinking of as far as the officials. So I don't know if referees will be here forever because this is a capitalist country. And if they can just make a AI version of whatever from looking above and just calling those and just having the people run, same thing with football, and they can license the person's voice or image or whatever to say whatever, the call may be, whatever the commentators may say, I do think that it could be the end of referees, officials, and commentators.
Wow. Scary to think about. Man.
I mean, the first time we saw them little robots, iRobot was just a myth for so long until we saw the first car drive itself, and now they have the dogs, and they have everything that's coming. I mean, we're just not open to it.
I think you said it. I mean, that was going to kind of lead us to our next topic too, right? Now, the other side of this is broadcasting, right? Like, where do you see? I mean, that would be the contracts that you have, right? If you represented those broadcast people, how would you try to implement like protections so that they don't get replaced by AI?
If I was Snoop Dogg's attorney, and like specifically, I would just make sure that his name, image, and likeness was kind of over everything that he already has, because he encompasses a lot of areas already. And so if he can just live on forever and have that residual income, as far as music, have those checks coming in, and still having his legacy set up where he has a trust put in place where his family can, withdraw those funds. That's the way that I would look forward to it. I wouldn't try to fight it. I would look to more like lean into it and figure out how we as far as the client, the talent, how we can draw more from it than they draw from us. So like not just giving away everything for the Kabi Lame thing really pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Because they're projected to make billions and he only sold for like 9 million. Like if that projection is billions, you need to at least have one B. At least one.
It's
so
you, right?
That's how I would look forward to it as far as like a contracts, talent position, licensing definitely, and just having those conversations of like, where would that money be in 10 years? Or what would this look like in 15 years,
Now, does the team negotiate with broadcast, or is that?
Well, so we have levels, right? So we have league games that they have a broadcast deal. We have local broadcasts. And so we may negotiate a local broadcast deal, but we also, we have nationally televised games through the league, and we don't have any control over those. But to her point, one of the things I wanted to think of, what I was thinking about as she was talking, was just about, because I will be honest and say that I am lightweight anti-selling your image completely outright. I think that there are some real privacy concerns with that. I think especially when we see all of the deep fakes that have been happening, I think we have to be very careful. And as attorneys, we want to make sure that we're advising our clients to be very, very careful about, outright selling our image, right? And also as attorneys, making sure that the provisions in the contract are very clear about how our image can be used. And also, making sure like certain times we need to approve. Like you can't just go out and just use my face just because you want to, right? I think because again, we're in a society where if you're on social media, half the things that are posted are AI, and people are believing these things to be true. And nobody Googles anymore, so people don't do any research, and so we have to be very careful about, making sure that, in your example, Snoop is not out here, showing dogfighting, right? Or whatever, that could harm his reputation, which goes beyond just the image, right?
So you just recently signed the highest paid soccer player in the history of women's soccer,
We did.
right? What implications?
Shout out to Shamika.
So what implications does that have for the team, right? Like, do things change for the entire team now that you have the highest paid player, or is it just different for her?
I think it's different for everybody, right? She is, in case nobody knew who he's talking about, we're talking about Trinity Rodman. We re-signed her this year, and I think that Trinity is one of the faces of the league, right? And so it is good that she stayed within the league. I think because she is a popular player, our team has to capitalize on that, right? But as far as like a team goes, as far as signing star players, whether it's our league, NFL, NBA, you know, there's such a thing as salary caps, right? And so it's
Just baseball.
except for
Sorry about that.
no, thanks for the correction. But in that regard, though, signing her versus any other, you know, NFL team signing a star player, you still have to exist within the salary cap, right? And so that's something for the team to figure out. I mean, that's, you know, as far as it goes, you know, so.
It's really cool, though.
It is
I
very
think
cool.
more so than just the face of women's soccer. I think she's probably one of the faces of women's sports, right? So
I believe so, yes.
now to the point about deep fakes, right? Especially with entertainments and entertainers. I mean, it felt like that was a big reason why you had that big standoff between actors and Hollywood and stuff like that. Was a big AI issue. Do you guys still see that as an issue going forward, or do you think it has been resolved?
I think anything, you know, any practicing lawyers in here know this, but anybody who's going to practice, you will learn it quickly. There are a lot of things that are nice to haves, but leverage is everything, right? And so when you're looking in the entertainment space and you're negotiating contracts within the entertainment space, the leverage that you have between you and whatever entity is paying you matters in what you're going to get, right? And so I think the one thing that the issue being publicized did was it educated people that it's a possibility. But if you're a working actor, somebody who is not a movie star, right, is every day going to auditions, trying to get jobs, and they say, well, yeah, we're going to scan your body and you got to be cool with it, more than likely you're going to have to be cool with it, right? Or you're going to have to stand on your moral principles and say, I'm not good with that, and then the next person probably is going to be, right, to get that paycheck. And I think it's a bigger issue for those at this point in time for those people, right? For the folks that don't have the leverage, can't demand certain things not happen within their contracts, but there is a plethora of folks out here that want to act, that want to do music, that want to be, you know, in the sports or in entertainment industries, that will sign those things. And so it's going to keep happening. I think it'll become more prevalent over time. I think its usage is not necessarily a bad thing. It's obviously bad for the talent, but you know, we see the CGI and the rampant, you know, introduction of CGI into movie budgets and productions, and the ability to be able to take real people, the scans of them, and be able to replicate them as background actors, right? That's really what we're talking about at this moment. Is most of these folks are just background actors, and that's not necessarily, you know, a deep fake, right? It's an artificial intelligence scan. That's a powerful tool that can help add authenticity to the images while also saving production dollars. It just sucks that the talent got paid one time for that, and so I think the unions, right, will it'll be up to them to fight for what that looks like for all working actors, and I think that's kind of continued, but it'll definitely evolve over time.
I can piggyback.
Absolutely.
So, to piggyback, in my position, it will be included in the contract to have some type of residual payment depending on how much the movie makes. I'm thinking about the girl who made the Dr. Pepper jingle right now and how she got paid off, like she put it on TikTok, got paid millions, and then it released, during the Super Bowl or something? I don't remember. But it will be in that agreement, like if you're using my voice for this, then I need a residual every month based on this percentage of what you make, basically. And so I think that just starting from the contract inception, like, I remember you saying, like, 100 people want to do the same thing, but they're not you. They don't have your sauce. So that company is going to wait for you to make up your mind and say what your dollar is. And so they want to move on to someone else, if they move on to someone else, because they may just want you for that specific project, and there may not be anyone else who can fulfill that project. But that's how I think with my clients.
They got leverage.
That's the leverage.
That's
though.
the leverage.
The leverage
Yeah.
is
That's
that
the
you are
leverage.
you. So if you want to wait to negotiate for 10 months, that's on you, because you have that right, and you are the the product, for lack of better terms. But as far as moving forward, with the Taraji P. Hensons, the Beyoncés, the Gabrielle Unions, when they're no longer here, it's kind of like, if their image is going to be used anywhere in the future, then how do they leverage that? What are those deals looking like for the future? So it's not saying no, it's saying yes, but A, B, and C.
I do think, once again, it depends on the talent. So right now, in December, Matthew McConaughey, he trademarked his phrase, right? All right, all right, right. He did it because of what we're talking about, right? He was tired of different movies, songs, and commercials using some form of all right, right. So he actually trademarked it. And he got the trademark, which is kind of unique because he only got the trademark for the way he says it in the 3 words and the pronunciation, which is similar to like Let's Get Ready to Rumble, Mr. Buffer back in the day. So I do think it's leverage, but it depends how much the talent care about their product, their thing, their catchphrase, their name, image, likeness. Because you can have added protections like a trademark to showcase. You actually need permission, and I can actually sue you in state, federal court if you use my name, image, likeness besides the natural, name, image, likeness provision. So I do think the talent can, if they care a lot about it, which some do. Like Cardi B tried to trademark car phrase occur, but that didn't get approved because they said it was too common, right? Anybody can say it, so she was kind of upset about that. But that's another thing, right? People know her for her catchphrase that people didn't say. Now people say it because of her. She tried to trademark it, it didn't work, right? And you can say, a lot of examples about this, like even like from movies, Luke, I'm your father, and all those like phrases that we know. People are trying, we said it in other movies or use symbols like it, we want to protect that. Some of it could be parody, right? The new Scary Movie 6 coming out. How much did Miramax really ask permission to use Sinners, to use weapons that just came out, to use Scream again? And it's always a fine line, right? How much can you comment, criticize, educate, compared to taking something, making your own, and call it a parody / another movie, right? So my mentors always say, always be curious about this stuff, right? No one's, as me working in private law, I'm not always going to get an assignment about a deepfake or about a trademark in that way. But when I see something, go to your research, like just back in law school, and research it on your own and understand the language, right? Why are people mad? Why are people not mad? What are the positives? What are the negatives? To me, that's how you become an expert on your own in regards of the firm, practice, or institution you work for. I want to know because when a client comes to me, you want to know what you're talking about, right? You want to wait for an assignment or a situation to happen. That's just my kind of 2 cents about it.
I just wanted to piggyback off of both of the comments because I think we have a lot of law students in the room, and so I want to make sure that something is highlighted about what they're saying. When you have a client and you are trying to advocate on their behalf, right? Having intellectual property is a huge thing, right? Because now that is yours. And so to go back to my statement about selling your name and image, when you own the trademark for something, now you have the ability to license it and continuously make money off of that, right? And so that's why, as an attorney, when you're advising your client, prior to saying, yeah, let's sell your name or your image or your likeness, you may want to consider, is there a way to trademark this so that you can make money in perpetuity and and you still own it? Because I think that's a big thing for me, is like making sure that the client still owns their stuff, right? And so I just always want to make sure, because we are at Howard Law School, and there are law students in the room, like that you are understanding like some of the implications that come with some of the things that we're talking about.
Can I add one last thing? I was just thinking when Edward was talking about the parodies and how it differs from the original. Professor Matima was actually one of my professors. Intro to IP is a great course to take to learn how much you can push the original content before it's considered a copy, and where you can push it to for it to be considered a parody. And I think that research is what people often miss, and that's how they get into a lot of legal situations.
I think we all got some great gems. I know we're getting close on time, so we want to open it up for some questions if we have any questions in the room. So we have about 10 minutes for questions. So if you have a question, please, I don't know if we have a mic that we standing around or we just standing up.
So speak loudly.
How you doing? Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. My name is O'Neill Gibson. I'm a 3L at Hofstra Law School in Long Island, New York. The question that I have is about a current conversation that I've seen going on about the Olympics. It's related to music and licensing. So the conversation is that you have a lot of international players and they're using music from these record labels in their performances, but because they're not necessarily from whatever country they're using the music from, they're having issues with said record labels about licensing the music. So I wanted to know your take on what young lawyers in the room, and law students can take away from that. What are some of the conversations you now want to have with those clients? And if you were their lawyers, what would the conversation be to speak to them and protect them from being sued from these record labels for licensing music incorrectly at the Olympics?
Stop using music
Yeah.
without permission.
Yeah, that's
Start there.
I was just gonna say, just get permission from the labels so it's not like it's me posting on Instagram with someone's, song or whatever. It's an actual athlete that's using it, and that's gonna be produced and put out to the world, right, to the marketplace. Intellectual property, IP, they have their own courts, right? So there's not the same courts as far as like family law is actual like district and up courts type of institution, I guess, put into place to cover this type of law. And so I would just tell my client to get permission, let me write a letter, or before we get a
just insist.
cease and desist letter, a C&D, but just get permission. And I was saying that to say, as far as the different courts, to say that the record labels, they have access, like the people that's outside of the U.S., it's not like it's a wall that's there, or it's a barrier. They very well have access to send letters or to send permission slips or whatever you need to get permission to use that music. I mean, I don't think it's a very hard task.
Well, what makes it hard is that the permission comes with a dollar sign, usually, right? So that's why you cannot use. They don't want to ask permission because they know it's going to be some type of dollar amount, because once again, their music is going to be exposed to the world. The LA Olympics is going to be a big, global phenomenon similar to the Super Bowl. They know eyes will be on it, right? So, yeah, the easy answer is get permission. Okay, what if I can't get permission? Okay, then we're going to have to, either use your own content, either use another third party that maybe not the one of the major stars. Don't use Harry Styles' new album that just went out in a year. Maybe use someone else and ask them. Because once again, it could be a win-win, right? I tell some of the clients, okay, maybe we can't go for a Beyonce, but let's go for an upcoming artist that makes sure that she can win, because now more people can know her music and we can win, right? So that's where you as the lawyer, the law student, the inspiring XYZ can get creative, right? Like, let's all win. I'm in the camp, like, I want everybody to win, right? That's why I'm not a litigator. I don't like the win-lose negotiation, right? You got to know who you are, right? I'm like, let's make a deal. I'm a deal maker. Let's make something happen. So you can get paid, I can get paid, and we come out, we all get paid, right? But that's the way I approach things, right? So I will, as someone advocating for a client, your job is to get to yes, right? The yes may not be a Beyonce, Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg yes, but it could be another yes to another artist who's upcoming, who has 100,000 followers on Spotify, and could be, uplifting their platform as well as yours. But, that's one way to go about it. You got to figure out a way. Don't be so pigeonholed into one way to get to that yes.
I'll just piggyback off of that, because we, not a specific athlete, but when you work for leagues already have music that they've already had gotten permission to use, right? I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, there was a lawsuit by many of the record labels suing different teams and leagues because they were using songs on their social media without permission, right? And so what ended up happening is that all these teams, all these leagues went back to their social media and basically were deleting posts so that they weren't infringing on the music company's rights, right? And so I think from that standpoint, from the teams, the leagues, you know, you have to know what songs are approved that come in that bucket that's already been negotiated, and try to figure out how to use those songs. Because the reality of it is no team really wants to outright pay anybody to use their music, especially when you already have a whole
bucket.
list of songs that you can use, right? So that's just a different perspective, because I think the Olympics it's kind of a one-off as far as like people using music, but we do it every day.
Yeah.
So. And he had a question too.
Who else? Oh,
Him right here, the
Okay.
second person to the left.
okay. He's next.
One of the questions I wanted to ask, it's a little bit different direction. Sports, law, and entertainment is just a hot area. So one of the questions I always get from law students or new attorneys is, you know, what should I be focused on if I want to become a sports law and entertainment lawyer? There's so many, I think there's a disconnect between some smaller firms. I think a lot of larger firms have moved to sector-focused practices. But a lot of smaller firms, you know, you're either an IP lawyer, contracts. Today we talked about you guys having experience with a bunch of different areas, right? We talked about labor and employment, IP, contracts, privacy, antitrust. What's your advice to some of the students in the room in terms of, you know, what they should be focused on if they want to practice in this area? And if they do have an offer from a firm like mine or like yours to come in and be just an IP, IP general practice attorney, how can they carve out a place for themselves in sports law and entertainment?
Learn how to be a good lawyer. Period. Hard stop. The skill set that you need, depending upon where you go, right? Because one of the biggest things I think about being an in-house attorney is that your main and only client is your company and the people within the company. So all of your business partners, marketing, corporate partnerships, ticketing, those are your clients. Those are who you're serving in order to help the company move forward, right? And so learning how to build relationships with people, quite honestly, learning how to manage up, whether that means, or manage across, you know, level set expectations. But at the end of the day, none of that really matters if you can't do your job. And doing your job means, you know, learning how to be a good lawyer. Like, if you're in-house, learn how to issue spot, right? Contract law is huge. Learn how to do research. Because the reality of it is you can learn specific subject matter once you get in the role, but you can't teach anyone how to do things that they should have learned in law school, right? So, you know, doing research, learning how to pinpoint issues, and again, building the relationships, because that starts in law school too. One of my professors used to always tell us, like, this is your cohort is the first level of attorneys that you will ever meet. And quite honestly, it's true, because I refer my classmates out all the time. And so those are the first people you're going to meet, and that's how you build relationships, because I've also gotten referrals from them, right? And so, and my overall thing is, like, be a good person. I think even though that's not specific to law, I think it's very specific to life. And if you're not, when you're a good person, good things happen. Good things happen to you, they come to you. And so, you know, just try to always remember, like, no matter what the situation is, that it's overcomable and you will be okay.
I think the term sports entertainment, I look at it as Big Tent, right? And when I talk to young law students and they say, I want to work in sports entertainment, I say, yeah, okay, you know, there's being a very specific entertainment lawyer, and your life is focused on, you know, negotiating entertainment-based contracts, or you being a specific sports lawyer and sports-based contracts. But, like, when you look at the general counsel's office for any major sports franchise, and you see a hiring post, right? They're usually looking for something really specific that has nothing to do with that specific sport whatsoever.
Correct.
Real estate is a huge one, right? Labor and employment is the other huge one.
Yeah.
I say all the time, like, I wish I went into labor and employment. I would have a sports job. I'd be working for a major franchise, because they're always hiring labor and employment. You're starting to see tech transactions and technology agreements pop up in privacy, right? So I think the answer to students that want to get in this game is I used to tell them, get in where you fit in, right? Get a job that you can hone your craft, whatever that craft may be, and get very good at your practice, and those opportunities will come. And then also, for you all that don't work at firms yet and they're going to work at firms, find the people in your firm that are doing the work you want to do, right? So get in where you fit in, but then go to those people that are doing the work that you want to do and tell them that you would love to do work for them, right? Carve out 10%, 20% of your utilization per year to that person for an assignment here, an assignment there. Grow your relationship with the people doing the work that you want to do. I started at my firm as a venture and tech transactions associate. I'm still a tech transactions and venture associate, but I found the folks that were working with all the large entertainment companies, and I said to them, if there's anything I could ever do, please let me know, right? And that's a huge piece of my work now, is for large entertainment companies doing their tech transactions, technology vendor agreements. So, there's so many different ways to get involved in this, and I think more education around all the ways that's both the sports and entertainment realms utilize different types of lawyers is probably helpful. I blame television and movies, right, for kind of ruining what that looks like, because the reality is you said it, it's a corporation, and just like any corporation, it kind of takes all of us to make it go.
And I mean, I'll also touch on it, right? So I always tell like law students, you kind of touched on it, right? Understand people, right? Like in this industry, if you understand the person sitting across from you just as well as you understand yourself, it makes the deal easy, right? Like, I'll put it relatively. It could make the deal easier. I'll put it like that, right? But like, if you understand people, then it makes like whatever you do as a lawyer, because at the end of the day, right, the work is the work, right? We all have to do the work, right? We all have to cross our T's, dot our I's, right? But being a good person is free, right? Like, it doesn't take anything to be a good person, and it's very, very financially sound. So,
just to piggyback, this is completely unrelated to your question. That goes back to AI. The one thing that I think is a major issue with artificial intelligence, anybody in here that works at a law firm is starting to see it with your summer associates and your early associates. It's not a replacement for the human element of this practice, right? I get a lot of assignments and things that I could just tell were AI produced and weren't heavily revised whatsoever, right? And there is a real human element, right? An emotional IQ element to being a lawyer in any practice. And when you are trying to leverage artificial intelligence to replace that, you are losing. It is very obvious to see, right? I think you said earlier, there's only one you. And so when you're taking you out of your work, it's noticed, and you will not advance, right? At least at the speed that you ought to.
I guess to add on to that, and then we can take another question, is similar to what you said, Derek, like fit in where you fit in, right? So I started as IP data and tech as a summer associate going to my first year. Luckily, in my firm, that practice expanded to entertainment media, perfect, which included music, sports, AI. So once again, but I knew IP was one of the foundational elements of what we talked about, right? Like you said, labor and employment, real estate, contracts. So understanding the basics of that world, and now you can do other, right? Now I can license to other agreements with some shapes here or there. Also being expose yourself, right? I knew everybody at this panel before we met today, right? Because we all stay in contact somehow, right? Whether in different cities, different platforms, different panels. So make sure you keep in contact with these people, right? I shouldn't talk to her again next year at the same platform. We won't, right? We already talked about hanging out at some point in the future, right? To catch up. And that's the point, right? Building a rapport. The sports entertainment, especially the black sports entertainment, is very small, right? We all pretty much know each other. You come into space, especially you go to 2 conferences. You go to 2, you know everybody, right? So be aware of those conferences are BSLA, the Black Entertainment Sports Law, SLA, the Sports Law Association. You can go to the Super Bowl, Grammys, Oscars, that's great, but you can go to the ones on the East Coast as well, right? So being exposed to different conferences, panels, showing up. I know someone from New York show up here. That's one step, right? It's like being exposed to these different things helps you be known as a sports entertainment attorney. But we can take the next question.
I just want to say
Oh,
something.
go ahead.
as
I'm
well.
sorry, Ms. Tom.
So as far as the people who are not 3Ls, who are still building their daily schedules and everything like that, I would say when I was looking, I already knew that I wanted to do entertainment law. I came into law school saying I was going to be Beyonce's attorney and do her contracts. So I knew I wanted to do contracts. Didn't know how I felt about it because I never took the course. But anyway, at Howard Law, I know we have IPSA, which is the Intellectual Property Students Association. We have SELSA, which is the Sports and Entertainment Law Students Association. I was also in VALSA, which is the Black Law Students Association. I am a member of ESI. I did a lot of things on campus to make sure I was in different rooms and different spaces. One of my first internships was at Discovery when it was in Silver Spring. Now it's Warner Brother Discovery, but that came from just me being a member of SELSA and that person working there reaching out to Howard Law specifically for someone for that internship. And that just kind of snowballed everything I was, did after that. My first job after law school, before I even passed the bar exam, came from a Howard Law alumni, and he owned his own entertainment firm in Atlanta, which is where I always wanted to be. I moved there before I came to law school just to come here. But anyway, so those relationships, even if it's not with your classmates, I mean, me and Charlie met at a conference just like this, and now this is one of my mentors. And so, just building those relationships outside of work and just having like a coffee or a drink or, going to a hookah bar or whatever the case is, just be a personable person. Obviously, being a good lawyer is going to get you in places, knowing to negotiate. I took a negotiating class. I took intro to IP, intro to entertainment, like intro to everything. Like when I was able to choose my courses, I built myself up to be in the position I am today. So if you don't know where you want to be in entertainment law or what you want to do, just keep yourself open. Maybe you want to do contracts. Maybe you want to actually represent talent. Maybe you want to work in-house for a music company or Sony or anything like it. It's a lot of opportunities. Yeah, you can go any space. Just keep yourself open and like have an open mind. Or if you know exactly what you want to do, make sure you're focused on that.
I like to tell law students too. It's like you could come with a specific mind, but you really should instead kind of be an empty cup and start chipping away at what you don't want to do, right? Like when you do something, you're like, I don't like this. Oh, sorry. But that's all I was gonna say. Absolutely. I'm sorry. I did look.
We still got 10 minutes, guys. We're not in a rush.
My question is in regards to, I guess I'm curious on your guys' take on how prediction markets is affecting the sports industry. With kind of how it's going to scale in the next 5 years. You don't really know how prediction markets are going to be next 5 years. My question is kind of how are, I guess your clients, or even just, is there a conversation about kind of how prediction markets like Kalshi and Polymarket are affecting how betting is working on the state level, even on the federal level? We know that obviously these platforms are federally regulated. However, states have kind of discretion on how they kind of want to regulate it. Is that a conversation that's being had when it comes to regulation and concern about maybe outpacing these traditional applications? I guess my question is in regards to like, what is that conversation like? Is that happening, or is it kind of like we're staying far from the prediction market space?
Well, as I said earlier, our rules are regulated by the league, right? And so we don't have much conversation about that, with the exception of whether or not they can sponsor, be a corporate sponsor of our team, right? And even with that is just making sure that it is, because we don't own the field where we play, making sure that we're not in conflict with the venue sponsor, which is a different sponsor than we may have, right? But other than that, we don't have a lot of input as far as like how far we can go with the betting. That's just from a team perspective.
I do think prediction markets are pretty early still. I think that there's, and this probably from your experience, still regulation that needs to be discussed and drafted. It's a little bit like Wild Wild West, right? Yeah. And so I think from a corporate standpoint, I think most corporations are staying a little bit away from it, and going a little bit with the known commodity, right, of the traditional gambling platforms.
Yeah, I don't really touch it too much in our private space, right? I know about it personally and generally, but we don't have much conversation about it because, once again, I think it's still too early. People are just starting to know about poly markets, and I know predictive analytics and probabilities are still been around, but I think it's so too early to really have an opinion on it on me yet. How the game's gonna play out.
I would say like a lot of, well, I don't know about some teams, right? They use predictive analytics, but not in the way that you think. I'll put it like that.
Oh yeah,
Right.
it's not for the betting side.
Right.
It's
They're-
for
they-
things that we can actually control.
Performance.
Yeah.
So like it's
performance.
here, it's
Yeah.
just not for the sports betting,
Right.
right? Because then that becomes very dangerous. But that's where the regulations arise.
Hi everyone, my name is Mariam Cavante. I'm 23 years old and I'm just a bachelor holder as of right now.
Not just you are.
Did have a question that I written verbatim. I wanted to know if AI can generate highlights, commentary, or even like virtual athletes, because I don't know if y'all be on Instagram, but sometimes the people that we looking at are not real. How will sports and like entertainment lawyers protect the authenticity and like economic value of like real talent?
So you're saying that the people are creating virtual athletes for money, for performance, or just for a show?
I guess it can apply to both, if that makes
Can you
sense.
just repeat your whole question?
Okay, I'll read it slower. If AI can generate highlights, commentary, or even virtual athletes, how will sports and entertainment lawyers protect the authenticity and economic value of real talent?
So it's already
Yeah.
creating highlights and I mean again, if you watch any football game, you'll hear them talk about the highlights and all of the things, right? So I guess that's why I kind of wanted you to repeat it, because I wasn't sure if you were talking about in the actual game or if you're talking about the actual athlete. And I think there's two totally different things, right? So with the athlete, it goes back to our conversation about name, image, likeness, and who is utilizing that. Like if an athlete wants to generate their own AI with themselves to show highlights, because athletes do it all the time if you're on social media, right? There's no issue with that. And quite honestly, it may be encouraged so that you are getting, some of your highlights out there. It's just a creative way to showcase who you are, right? Flip side, we don't want other people to do it if they don't have permission and aren't paying the athlete to do it, right? And so I think from that perspective, it goes back to that whole discussion about like protecting your name and your image and making sure that, if you can trademark yourself or trademark something to license it and just make money off of it, that's a whole different thing, right? But I think from the other side of it, like from broadcast to all of the things, like you're already seeing it. Again, like I think the first question I was talking about how NFL uses it to they're literally enhancing the fan experience on how they watch, how they bet, and all of the things, and couple that with the individual stadiums or teams using the fan data to cater to their fans and make that experience top notch. Because again, it goes back to, as Derek said, revenue, right? And so they're trying to figure out how to maximize the experience so that they can make the most money.
And practically, to answer your question, the protection all comes from either the licensing contract or the vendor contract,
Right.
whatever it looks like, right? So like specifically thinking about highlights, and I'm going to utilize some form of an AI vendor to quickly create these highlights and different aspects as an efficiency tool. Well, in that vendor contract, there's a license provision or provisions that are going to give them the ability to utilize specific information, data points, and then there's going to be all types of protections and restrictions and things they cannot do. So that's where a lot of the blocking and tackling or the protecting goes. Now, if they breach that contract, then that's where litigators get involved, and those things happen for cease and desist and takedowns and all types of stuff like that. But just to add a layer to it, the athletes themselves, when they're engaging in these types of activities, they have their own contractual obligations and certain things that they're allowed to do on their own versus what needs to be mandated by the team or the league. Why you see fake teams and fake uniforms in a lot of commercials, when you see your favorite athletes in those commercials, that the provider of the commercial, whoever it is, whatever, I don't know, I'm trying to think of one, like Papa John's or something.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to pay the league to have a license to that team's uniform and the
Right.
league's emblem and all that kind of stuff. So they're just going to put you in a random blue uniform, right? So it's all contracts is the answer practically in terms of protections.
Any other
She has a
questions?
question.
I was wondering about the images after, I think what you guys alluded to, someone passing. So, for example, I know there were issues years ago about holograms of Michael Jackson, I believe, and Tupac as well. And as we think about Beyonce and LeBron James, Serena Williams, athletes and artists who are retiring, are there provisions in contracts that you know about that talk about holograms or AI usage after passing? And if not, how are you tackling that now as they begin aging? And as some of them are allowing AI usage?
It's all negotiation, right? There's no such thing as a standard contract, right? Yeah, you could have like entire agreement, force majeure, severability, but if those athletes want that in there, it's up for their attorney or their team to negotiate that, right? And it depends, right? I don't use the word afterlife. I don't want to think about death, but yeah, you retire and you still want to be known as a known commodity, right? Like, no, the TNT crew, or now ESPN, I should say, Barkley, Shaq, Kenny, and Ernie, right? They are a commodity, right? And they know that, right? Why did you see them on all 4 different commercials? Not too much Ernie, because he doesn't want to do it, right? He could do it if he wants to. He didn't play the game of basketball, but he has a commodity, right? So I do think you can have whatever you want in the contract. Like Derek said, you have leverage, right? It show, hey, after I retired, I still have a name, image, likeness, right? Because I'm a star athlete, right? And people still, we see Serena now on those commercials. I get them on Hulu a lot, but those Hulu commercials about losing weight, right? That's the thing, right? And then we know, Rihanna now less music, more products, right? Cosmetic products, right? So the answer is you can have whatever you want in the contract if you have the leverage and negotiation power to do so, right? So you want holographic images? Great. If you want AI compare related highlights? Great. So that's kind of the basic answer, I would say.
I would also highlight that what you're saying and what he's saying, it's important that your agreements are not in perpetuity. Like, that's why you have a term provision in the contract. And I say this because even from an NIL perspective, right, you want to make sure that, because we're seeing a lot of college athletes like, oh, then we're in the transfer portal. Okay, now the school wants to sue them, right? And so that involves the term because number one, you only NIL deal for a college athlete is only as good as while they're in college, right? And so like you don't want to do a 3-year deal for a freshman who may not stay in college for 4 years, right? And so that's important. Number one, to make sure that the term is something that if you're dealing with a player who only probably has 2 more good years in them, or quite honestly, they may get injured and it ends their career, right? So these are just different things you want to think about as you're drafting or redlining the agreement to make sure that your athlete is never going to be put on a place where they may be a breach because they decided to retire early. Life changes. People change their minds, and so you want to think about, as you're redlining or drafting, like what the term is. Talk to your client and making sure that it fits as much as possible, because that's your job as the attorney, is to plan for all of the worst case scenarios. They're not thinking about that, right? And so it's your job to do so.
And you had brought up a, kind of outlier scenario earlier. The type of license agreement you're talking about, like the companies that are going to be looking at the afterlife scenarios on how to create entertainment and ongoing value with that likeness, those companies are kind of still in the early works, right? Those are still the startups in Silicon Valley, in Austin, and around the country. They're still trying to figure out how to make that profitable. The holograms that we have seen are wildly expensive, right? So, there's still technology that's working out to figure out how do I take this really Beyonce's likeness at some point and be able to continue to put on concerts with holograms and things like that. The technology will get there, right? It's a when, not an if. But when it gets closer, there will start to be some form, I guess, of a standard afterlife license agreement, which is crazy to think. But right now, I don't really think anybody could probably call themselves the foremost expert in negotiating out afterlife license agreement for holograms and continued entertainment and things along those lines. There are principles that exist, right? We know that estates and heirs can profit off of the continued likeness and leveraging of that likeness. But I'm sure that'll evolve as it becomes a little bit more digitalized and real as well, right? And we're able to make those things do things that maybe they otherwise wouldn't do, right? Moral principles. So there will be I think a continued evolution of what that likeness license looks like for afterlife as we get further with the technology.
I think we're seeing it more too in music with the estates because,
Yeah.
Marvin Gaye and Isaac Hayes and, their estates and how they're so like, hey, that's my dad's stuff. You know what I mean? So I think that it's evolving, as he said.
Quincy Jones.
I was just going to add a tad bit to answer your question. No, I have not come across any of those type of agreements yet. However, I also do foresee there being like how people have wills, but like IP wills, so that like in the future, this is what you can and cannot do, and that's going to be how people gauge what they can and cannot use people's holograms or whatever. I mean, Black Ink had another episode where the man was in jail with his hologram, but it was his actual being, and so that's just a whole nother conversation. But yeah. Oh, the Black Mirrors. Yep. Yes.
I think we are out of time. So if we have any questions, we can always network after. But I do want to appreciate all of our panelists for giving us some great gems today. And with that, we'll turn it back over to Charlie.